Something here is calling us forward, upward motion. We're drops in one ocean. Roll on.
Will you rise up with me today? Lift up your voice
And boldly say,
we are the ones we've been waiting for. Live the dream of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks again for joining us for this third in our series of the Divine Feminine Peace Spa. It's so nice to see that many of you are joining us, and we have a special guest this evening, Mrs. Ila Gandhi, joining us from South Africa, as well as Mrs. Masami Sayonji, and Yuka and Maki are with her. And we're just going to begin right away by beginning to introduce you to our guest tonight. And for that, I'm going to ask one of my co-hosts, Stephen Pope, to help me by introducing first Ila Gandhi.
Gladly, I feel honored. Ila Gandhi, and we have to remember it's 3 a.m. her time, takes up issues of prejudice, of oppression, when she tackled the bigger, should I start again, honey? Ila Gandhi takes up issues of prejudice, of oppression, of power, and of ensuring that the voices of the oppressed are heard. When she tackled the bigger questions of how people can be mobilized to take up their own issues, she was placed under house arrest for 8 years. She served in the South African Parliament for 2 terms and became editor and chairperson of the board of the management of Satyagraha in Pursuit of Truth, a nonprofit organization producing a newspaper promoting Gandhian ideals. She is secretary of the Gandhi Development Trust and chairperson of the Domestic Violence Helpline and the Mahatma Gandhi Handicraft Center. She is a member of the advisory boards of Unilever Ethics Center, International Advisory Board of the World Parliament of Religions. Mrs. Gandhi is also vice president of the South American chapter of the World Conference on Religion and Peace, and is also on the ANC, the Afro National Congress's Commission on Religious Affairs. After serving recently as chancellor of the University of Durban, she set up a Center for Nonviolence with a focus on building a resource center, a research facility, an academic facility, a materials development facility, and a community outreach program. In the course of their work, they realized that there is a need to work from the early childhood development phase, so they developed a program to promote values at this stage of a child's life. They train trainers to take the program forward into the community. They have a schools program as well, which is devoted to the prevention of HIV, raising awareness at a school level of what HIV is and how it is contacted and how one can prevent it. Together with this, they focus on conflict resolution and management skills, with an emphasis on nonviolent communication. They also have a program to empower young people out of school seeking employment and to look to developing entrepreneurial skills and helping them develop skills to set up their own businesses in terms of self-sufficiency. Lastly, they have advocacy programs that span across the community and are aimed at promoting Gandhian thought. At the Phoenix Settlement, there is a museum and a computing training center.
Thank you. Then now, before we begin our program, I'd also like to introduce you to Masami Sayonji, who is chairperson of the World Peace Prayer Society, the Goi Peace Foundation, and Shinko Kai. She is a descendant of the royal Ryukyu family of Okinawa. Mrs. Sayonji continues the work of her adopted father, Masahisa Goi, who initiated a movement for world peace through the universal prayer, "May peace prevail on earth." She has authored over 20 books in Japanese and 8 in English and other languages, including The Golden Key to Happiness, You Are the Universe, Vision for the 21st Century, Think Something Wonderful, Cries of Life, and Evolving with the Universe. Stephen, would you go ahead and introduce Yuka?
I would love to. Yuka Sayonji Matsuura is also with us and will be helping to translate her mother. She's deputy chairperson of Byakuko Shinkokai, and this spiritual organization dedicated to world peace originated in Japan over 50 years ago, teaching the divinity of all humanity. It hosts the Symphony of Peace prayers, where religious leaders and more than 10,000 people pray together. Yuka has a degree in law from Gakushun University in Japan and serves on the World Spirit Youth Council.
And Yuka, I think who's with you tonight, Maki? Dr. Maki Sayonji Kawamura is Managing Director of Goi Peace Foundation in Japan and Vice Chairperson at Byakuko Shinkokai. At this point, we know that, I'm not sure if Maki is going to be part of our program tonight, and many of our attendees also know her. So now I'm going to move on to the part of our program where we have a moment of meditation and contemplation, as we always do at the beginning. This evening, I discovered a wonderful music video about women and who they are in relation to their work and to their peacemaking on the planet. And so I'd like us all to just relax for a moment and turn inside and take a look and listen to this video that I'm going to share with you now.
The river carry water from the well at break of day, and they talk to one another. God only knows what they might say. You might get an education after years of dedication. You might finally get a glimpse of what is right and what is wrong. But the women across the river, well, they knew that all along. Oh, the women across the river work with tools that are ancient and handmade. Fields in perfect rows, and then they rest beneath the shade. Now we have learned to build out of concrete, out of steel, and our buildings stand 1,000 years, but then even they are bound to fall. the dew upon the ground. I love to hear them laughing in the rain when it makes that perfect sound. Now a soldier with a gun and a battle to be won might kill you with a bullet and you never even know the reason why. But the women cross the river, they can kill you with their eyes. Oh, the women cross the river, they can kill you with their eyes.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that with me. So now I would like to begin by asking Masami Sayonji to briefly talk about what we've been discussing in the first two sessions of the Divine Feminine Peace Spa, which happened in January and February. And I just wanted to say that it's so important for each of us in the language and practice of our cultures and religions to get in touch with our most sacred values before we can create true peace and nonviolence in our communities. So Masami, you have expressed this in your tradition as the divine spark. Would you speak to this question and also include the importance of honoring feminine leadership in our world today?
いいの？はい、バーバラが、1回2回を通してこのような素晴らしい会を作っていただいて、私は本当に大きな膨らむ、もう心から膨らむような喜びでいっぱいです。
I just first want to thank you, Barbara, so much for giving me the opportunity to speak in the first two sessions. And I was so honored and my heart was overfilled with joy to be a part of this spa.
神聖について私は本当に今こそこの世の中、世界中のあらゆる、状況を見ていて、いつも感じることは、みんな本当に命というのはみんな素晴らしいし、永遠の力を持ってるし、どんな困難があっても覆すだけの力を持っている。でも長い間、女性、男性性、あと女性は虐げられ従ってきたけれど、今こそ本当に時期が来たんだと思う。時が来なければ男性性が目覚めないし、女性性も目覚めない。だけど今女性性が目覚めなければ、本当女性性と男性性が共に目覚めなければ、両方で平和を作り上げることができない。そのためにこうやって今日はイラとつながることができ、そしてまた次から次へとつながっていけば、その神聖というものによって輪ができて、そしてその大きくつながった平和、結局女性性というもの、さっきバーバラが素敵なメロディーとその映像を出してくださったけど、本当にそういう人たちでも笑っている人たちもいるし、本当に悲しそうな人たち、これは女性たちが我々が立ち上がらなければ彼らはいつずっと続くかもしれない。そういう人たちにも希望と光と同じ命を同じ状況で生きられるように、私たちは本当に世界中の女性たちと手を結びたい。それをバーバラが私やイラエとかまた多くの人たち、ジェームス・チャナンなんかとつながって男性性と共に行かれるという。
Okay, so now is really the time for all of us to connect to our divine spark. That's what we say, the divine spark, the infinite power that we have within, the beauty of our life itself. But the current situation aren't allowing us to connect to that divine spark. So it is really time for us to connect to it. And when we can connect to it, anything could be possible. and up until now, a lot of women, and the divine feminine has been buried. And so now the time has come for the divine feminine and the divine masculine to wake up and awaken. And unless we do that within ourselves, we won't be able to create true peace on earth. And so I am so grateful today to be connected again with this spa and to meet Mrs. Ira Gandhi. And just like the video that we saw right now that Barbara showed us, I think it starts with everyone smiles. Every woman should be able to smile and live fully. But right now, the current situation, there are people who suffer a lot, and a lot of women are suffering, and we cannot let this continue. That's why it is time for all of us to come and stand up, to hold hands, and to create a peaceful world together.
Thank you. So, Masami Ila, like you, has been dedicating her life to nonviolence and human rights, especially in support of those who are most disadvantaged and have no voice really in finding justice. So it is a very great pleasure for me personally that the two of you will meet today and be a living demonstration of how we as women can support each other around the world in our work. So if you would now briefly greet Mrs. Gandhi, and then we'll move forward and hear a little bit about Mrs. Gandhi's work.
Gandhi さんのお孫でとか、
そう、
今度大きくバーバラ的に平和の活動してる。
はい、イラのことを説明するの。
そうだからあえて嬉しいとか。
本当に、バーバラによって、お会いできてとても嬉しいです。あなたのガンジーさんは、私は本当に私の父、五井正久先生もガンジーのことを本当に尊敬してらしたし、ガンジーのことを本当に多くの人々に伝えておりました。ですから私もその、父のその意思を継承してガンジーさんの言葉や伝えてましたけど、こうやって直接そのガンジーさんのイラ・ガンジーお孫様にお会いできて、共に女性性として共に手をつないでいくっていうことは、私は本当に涙が出るほど魂の感動を覚えます。
It is such an honor to meet you, Mrs. Gandhi. My father, who was the one who spoke about may peace prevail on earth, he always respected Mahatma Gandhi, and he spoke about Gandhi a lot in his words. So I myself have been influenced deeply also by Gandhi. So I am so grateful to meet you, and I think it is really wonderful that we can hold hands, like all of us, and everyone bringing out their divine feminine and together work together. Work together for the true peace and happiness of the world. And thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and for your being, Mrs. Gandhi.
Thank you so much. So now we're going to move forward. Mrs. Gandhi in a moment is going to tell us a little bit about the history of her work in South Africa and some of the programs she's working on now, which are very important. And also, she's been a great champion for rights of women and equal status and fairness in the organizations that she's been connected with. And I would like to first say that, for one thing, I'd like all of our viewers today and the many people who will only be listening to this recording afterward because the timing wouldn't work for them to be with us live. But I want everyone to listen very carefully to the programs and the work that Ila is about to share, because we're going to be asking the AGNT community and the registrants of the Peace Spa to help support her work in any way that they can, because her programs are in serious need of funding. and in order to keep going. And we as a community of women around the world, we want to be part of who can support that, as we want to support one another. So I want to tell you, first of all, that you can go to a website, agnt.today /support projects. I'm going to show you that on the screen for a moment, because I want to make sure that you know what the website is. If you go to the website and make a contribution, we call it a love offering, then there we go. Then we'll make sure that 100% of those donations are forwarded to Ela for work on her projects. And if you request, we'll send you a letter of tax exemption from the 501c3 that the Association for Global New Thought is. So please keep that in mind as you listen today. Thank you. Now, Ela, here's where I would just really like you to come in and jump in. We haven't heard from you yet. And just begin by telling us a little bit about the history of your work. Just feel free to share with us whatever details or history of those projects come to mind for you.
Let me first start by greeting all of you and thanking Barbara for giving me this opportunity to be on this program. I think it's a very important program where we look at the divine in women, and that spark really needs to be lit all over the world, because up to now, I think women are being targeted and abused all over the world. And to change that, we have to recognize the divine in women. So having said that, let me just talk a bit about Gandhiji and what we are trying to do to promote Gandhian ideas. Gandhiji arrived in South Africa in 1893, at a time when there was a lot of discrimination, a lot of oppression of Black people in South Africa. And when he arrived in South Africa, he was an ordinary lawyer. He came there to practice law. A businessman had invited him to appear in a case that he was involved in. And so he had come there not realizing that there was something else that God had ordained for him. Having come to South Africa and encountered the various discriminatory practices in the country, he changed. And there were two, important things that happened to him in his life at that time. One was he began to think of spirituality, and he began to read the world's scriptures of the different religions of the world. So he began to read about Zoroastrians. He began to read about the Quran, the Bible, the Gita, and so on. And having read these books, and then he also read philosophers such as Tolstoy and Ruskin and other philosophers. And he began to think about his life. And the one thing about Gandhiji was that he would never ask somebody to do something which he wouldn't do himself. So there are lots of stories, but today we don't have the time to share those stories. I just want to say that that was a very, very important aspect of Gandhiji's life. And seeing that, he wanted to talk to people about the plight of the poorest of the poor in South Africa, he decided to change his lifestyle from living in the city in a beautiful house where everything was found, like electricity, water, and things like that. He moved to a rural area, and the picture that you show in the AGNT, appeal is the picture of the house in which Gandhiji lived. Today, the house looks a little more modern in the sense that the poles are cemented, but at that time when Gandhiji was there, the whole house was just wood and iron, a very simple little house which was built overnight by the people themselves. So the poles that you see there were all wooden poles. The staircase was just a simple staircase without any, the side walls and things like that. As you see there was a tank in which the rainwater was collected because they had no running water from the city. That is the house in which I was born. And I remember it very, very distinctly. So what I want to say is that he simplified his life at Phoenix Settlement. And Phoenix Settlement is actually the birthplace where he began to think of what does one have to do to become a non-violent resistor. If you want to join the army, you have to train as a soldier. Many years of training before you can actually go and fight in the army. So if you want to train as a non-violent worker, you also need to have many years of training. And this is what he started at Phoenix Settlement. And this is what we are promoting both at Phoenix Settlement and in our work generally. So as when I was introduced, it was said that we start from the very early levels of life, that is with the little children from 3 years of age. We actually started a program where we train those who look after the little children in the nursery schools. Now, if you look at the world today and you look at the budgets of the countries, you will see that the largest portion of the education budget goes to universities. And the smallest portion, if any at all, goes towards the care of the little children. And that is because there is a perception that these children at that age would be looked after at home by the mother and by the grandmothers. But things have changed. Over a period of time, both parents are going to work. In South Africa, for instance, we have a rate of 50% where the children are brought up by a single parent. And if a single parent, has to work to support the family as well as look after the child, there isn't enough time to nurture the child and teach the child good values and to teach the child good citizenship. And this is what our program is devoted to. We train the teachers until we started this about 5 years ago. And today we have trained approximately 500 of those, people who are looking after the children and taking care of nursery schools. We also train preschool teachers, those who are teaching at the early childhood, the infant classes. And these are some of the people that you see in this photograph are the people who have been trained, and they have come to receive their certificates. And this was just last year that they received their certificates after the training program. So our program is devoted to that, and we are now also training the people who look after the children in the home. So it's mothers, it's grandmothers, or it's sometimes other people who are looking after the children after they leave school and go back home. So what we felt is that it's important that both messages from the school and from the home are the same messages, so that the child doesn't get conflicting messages at home and at school. And so we are training the parents as well now. And this program just started early this year, and we've got at least 60 parents who are being taught in this program. We are also looking at children in schools, where we have programs of awareness raising, of nonviolent behavior. We look at communication and develop communication skills amongst the children so that they learn how to communicate in a nonviolent way. We are also raising awareness about HIV and AIDS amongst these children. Again, because what we find is that at the early levels, a lot of children become, victims of sexual violence, of abuse, and so on. And they don't realize what AIDS does to them. So for them to be safe, for them to look after themselves and prevent this kind of abuse and prevent themselves from getting AIDS, we teach them about what AIDS is, how they can prevent it, what they need to do even if they have been abused, what they can do immediately instead of keeping quiet about it. So those are the awareness programs that we have in schools. And we go to high school level, and then we also do programs in the community as well, which also focuses, and this is a program where what you see in the picture, where young people have come together to look at how they can set up their own businesses. Because today there's almost 30% unemployment in the country. And if everyone goes to look for a job, they are not going to be able to get jobs. So they have to look at other means of being economically active. And one of the ways is to set up their own little businesses. And so this is an entrepreneurship program that we designed for the young people. And they are being taken through the program in order to see what skills they can develop in order to set up successful little businesses. So that's the other program that we run. We also teach them to grow their own vegetable gardens. And these gardens are grown in every facility where they have the little children being taken care of. Here we see a facility which is being taken care of by the elderly. So we have a whole generation. We start from the very early childhood level to the elderly. And here there are many older people who come together every day. They come and they have some activities on Phoenix Settlement for the elderly. And one of the activities is to grow the vegetable patch. And then they take the vegetables from there, they cook it, and they feed the community in the area, because it's a very, very poor community that lives around there. So the vegetable patch becomes an important avenue to get nutritious food. We also teach the children through the nutrition department of the Durban University of Technology. We teach them about nutrition. We teach the teachers about good nutrition. We teach parents about it and the elderly, so that they begin to understand the value of food and how they should, cook and what they should cook. This is being taught by the Durban University of Technology students who are part of our program. We also have the sports students who come and teach them about little exercises and things which children from early childhood level to the elderly people, all of them at each stage, what are some of the things that they can do in order to keep their bodies healthy. So the sports people come in and teach them about health. We also have the drama students who come and perform for the little children. And they perform the stories through which we impart the values to the children. So these stories are then dramatized, they are broken down into little poetry, songs, music, and so on. So we use all those methods in order to transmit this message. There are 12 values that we look at, and those 12 values are transmitted through storytelling and through drama and through music and so on. So we use all these different methodologies, and we are lucky in that the university has accepted this as part of its curriculum. And the drama department actually uses this for the exams of the students. So the students have to learn this, dramatize it, and that drama is then, examined as part of the exam marks that they get at the end of the year. So that motivates them to participate in this program. Briefly, those are the programs that we run. And in the buildings at the Phoenix Settlement, we also have museums. And there are 3 different places that you can see in the museum. In that house, there is the story of Gandhiji and how he transformed. So you have a room in which all the ways in which he transformed his life are depicted. Then you have another room in which all the influences on his life, the different scriptures, the different philosophers are depicted. And then we have a third room in which we depict the influence of Gandhiji on the world. So you have world leaders who have been influenced by Gandhiji and how they, ran their non-violent struggles in various parts of the world. So those are depicted in one room. And that is in the house in which Gandhiji lived. We have another museum where we call the one part of the display, the seeds of democracy. And so we show what democracy really is, that it's about talking, it's about conversation, it's about involving people. And we look at the people that lived in the neighborhood at Phoenix Settlement in Inanda. And there were many people from that neighborhood who were leading personalities and who also, just for, the especially the United States listeners, there were many influences from the American missionaries. And one of them was the Inanda Seminary. The second was John Dubé, who was a neighbor of Gandhiji and who had studied in the United States. Both himself and his wife came to United States. They studied in United States and they took back the message to their communities in Inanda. And we show in that Seeds of Democracy that through the discussions, all these people, that's Mr. Dubé, Mr. Shembe was another spiritual leader in that area, Gandhiji and others, developed a common spirituality, a shared spirituality, respect for all the different religions, and taking the best from the religions. And so they, all of them believed in this. They also believed in self-sufficiency and dignity, human dignity, and they promoted this, all of those leaders in that area. They also looked at how to mobilize communities. You earlier talked about how we had mobilized communities to resist the oppression in South Africa. Gandhiji started that mobilization in those early years in the 1900s. And all these leaders talked about mobilizing their communities and using media in order to mobilize the communities. So they used print media, and Gandhiji had a newspaper that was being published from Phoenix Settlement. And so that was one part of the museum. The other part of the museum has the rich history of Kasturba Gandhi. And Kasturba Gandhi was the wife of Mahatma Gandhi. And she participated in the resistance movement in 1913. Both Kasturba Gandhi and women in South Africa participated in the resistance campaigns in that country. And what we find is that in 1913, many women all over the world did not even have the vote. So the women's position was absolutely worse than it is today. And at that time, these women stood up and defied the laws and courted imprisonment. Kasturba Gandhi was imprisoned in Pietermaritzburg for nearly 4 months. And together with her, there were a number of other women who were imprisoned there. And today that prison in Pietermaritzburg stands as a heritage site where they've got, the stories of these women who participated in those campaigns. So the whole exhibition is dedicated to women's struggle. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ela. There's so much there that we have to think about. So I would like now to ask our other panelists first, and also those who are attending and for this webinar, to whether anyone would like to ask you a question or make a comment or offer any information relevant to what you were just telling us. So, you can raise your hand and I'll see a little hand pop up if you'd like to speak and ask your question. And those of you who are panelists, the Sionjis, Charles, Stephen, you can raise your hand and I'll see you if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question. Anyone? Ms. Sionji?
素晴らしいさよ。本当にイリガンジさんのお話は大変な努力と精進と苦しみや不安や恐怖がありながら自分のその生きがい信念自分自身の神聖をとつながってこれだけのことをしてきたことに対して本当に私は深い尊敬と感謝を捧げます。確かに今全部ご説明を伺った時に結局これは私たちが何ができるかバーバラと何ができるかバーバラもバーバラのやり方があるし私やはりそこで、やってこられたことに対して私たちができることはそこをサポートしてよりそのもっとイラガンジさんがもっと本当にここまでやってきた努力を実らせるっていうところまであらゆる教育にしたいと思う。それが私たちができる。つながりっていうのは本当に大切だと思う。そのつながりをつながらせる人がまた大事であるし。ですから、バーバラさんが立ち上がってくれて、私につなげて、私はまた他の人をつなげて、またイラさんが他の方々をつなげて、そうすると一瞬のうちに今の環境を変えることができるから、やはりつながり、やっぱり神聖につながっていくことがポイントだと思います。でもここまでの本当にご努力と正直と結果に対して深い尊敬を申し上げます。ありがとうございます。
I was just so amazed by Ila's story, all the effort that she's been doing, all the passion she has, and to strive on the ground and have been connecting to her own divine spark to manifest such great accomplishments and work for the people and for women and for children. And, I have been always speaking with Barbara, what can we do? But I think hearing Ila's Gandhi, it's really about supporting each other. And for me to support the work that you've done, the amazing work that you've been doing in the education and spread it. Each one of us to connect with each other is so important, and also the connector is important. So having you, Barbara, is what manifests these connections, these amazing connections. And I hope to spread your work to the people in Japan and again to start spreading the connection. And instantly we can change the environment. And so, but in any case, I am just so amazed by your work, your effort, your endless passion and dedication for the humanity, and I am in deep honor and grateful to meet you and to hear about you.
Thank you, Ms. Ami, and thank you, Yuka. Any of our other panelists like to ask a question? Charles, would you like to speak with us for a minute?
Yes, Ila, thank you so much. What a great inspiration. One of the first books I read turning into this new year, actually reread, is my copy of Gandhi's autobiography. And through that, getting to relive his incredible experiments and the way he grew into his soul self in a way that was, I think, will forever, as long as there are people a little awake and drawing breath on this planet, will continue to inspire and challenge us. And it's easy for me in listening to you to see that spirit alive in you and moving through you and the work you do. The question I have to add just to the profound gratitude I feel for you and the work you do is what what keeps you going? I know you have been doing this work for decades in very challenging circumstances. They certainly have improved in some ways, but the depth of the challenge is enormous. What inspires you? What feeds your soul to help you continue?
Okay. Thanks for that question. I think, it's not just myself. There's a whole lot of people, all of you as well, because I think it's when we come together that we begin to look at the lessons of life. And I think that is the most important thing. Because yes, we fought for freedom in South Africa, for liberation from the oppressive regime that we have in South Africa. But do we really have freedom anywhere in the world? Are people able to access the basic necessities of life? Do people enjoy social justice? Do people enjoy human rights? And those are the questions that I ask myself. And I look at Gandhiji's life and I see how relevant some of the issues that he has spoken about are to ensuring that the world changes towards, a situation where everyone can actually access basic necessities of life. So how do we bring about that change? And that change can be brought about if each one of us changes. It's from our own lives. If each one of us begins to think and accept responsibility and look at the community, not from what is good for me, but what is good for us. And I think that change, that shift from what is good for me to what is good for us is what the entire world needs to, make that shift. And I think that is what keeps me going, because I feel that there are lots of people in the world who agree with this and who are in their own ways doing the same thing. So by connecting with all of you, I think that this work will move on, and these dialogues help us to clarify our own thoughts and to see how far we have reached. I hope I've answered that question.
No, that's a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. Charles, did you have a follow-on, or does anyone else have a comment or a question? Do any of you attending today, you're a very important part of these programs because you're the ones who are working in your unique communities on all of these issues. And so it's not just the fact that we're talking on the screen. It matters that you're attending, that you're interested in becoming more educated. You have a lot to share as well. I'm just wondering if any of you would like to ask Ela or anyone on the call a question or make a comment of your own. I know people tend to be a little shy sometimes in this format and they don't want to raise their hands and speak, but that's okay. This recording will be available if you want to follow up and get in touch with us. So let me see. Charles or Stephen or Yuka or Masami, was there anything briefly that you wanted to add before I ask Ela if she has any closing remarks for us? You would just have to wave at me in the camera if you'd like to say something else. Okay, Charles and Masami would like to briefly say something else. I'll start with Charles.
I just want to thank Barbara, to thank you and Masami and Ela. To anyone who will listen and people who won't, I say that I think the single most important thing for the future of humanity in a positive way is the leadership of women and the leadership of women who act from their divine spark. And you three are great examples, and all three of the Saionji women. But it's a privilege to share this with you and to be inspired by the way you are helping to lead our world to a better place. It's a privilege to journey with you.
Thank you, Charles. I knew there was a reason why we wanted you to join us this evening. No, thank you sincerely. I'm sure we all feel exactly the same. We need the support of the evolving masculine as the divine feminine seeks to find its new place in our evolving culture, right? So I would like to ask Masami Saionji to make just a couple of remarks, and then I'm going to ask Ila if she has any closing thoughts she hasn't shared yet.
何どうぞどうぞ。何を言うの I would like to. I would like to listen to your advice or your Barbara's
Comment to Ila.
comment
To Ila.
to Ila.
My mom would like to ask your comment toward Ila, Barbara, because she's always inspired by you.
Well, all that I can say is Ila I consider her a friend for a very long time because we've worked together in different settings. We never see each other enough, but whenever we have a chance to see each other, I always like to think that first it's a personal friendship and then it's a collaboration in our work. And I hope she feels the same way. And I know that she's one of the people like you, Masami, that she doesn't so much ever want anyone to pay attention as if the importance is on her, because she already has the consciousness, as she said just a moment ago, that now it's not about I or me, it's about we, because the only way to move forward under the challenging circumstances of our society now is to think as a collective, collaborative body that shares the spirit and the mind and the heart, as well as action in the community. So I'm always so very inspired and grateful to be part of Ila's work, and that she always makes time for us whenever I ask. And I feel that that's a great blessing, but I also feel that this opportunity for women like all of us here, and the men, but Masami and Ela and Yuka and Maki and Rika, and I'm seeing some wonderful names on our attendee list as well, that we're working so hard every day and for years and years and years in our lifetime. And sometimes the most important thing is for us to become aware of one another and to be able to let down our guard and relax and just enjoy what women enjoy together that makes them feel as if they're supported and nurtured. We saw that in our video a little bit, that women operate differently than men, and we need to know that our sisters are around us so that we can go back into the field the next day, into the office, into the factory, and know that others are feeling with us the challenges that we're facing, and that we could reach out and speak to any of those sisters if we wanted some support. And so that's why what I think is the value of these dialogues, that doesn't replace the work on the ground, which is why I'm asking us all to think about supporting Ila's projects after we leave this seminar tonight. But I think that's the short answer to the long answer to your question. Thank you so much for asking, Masami. And the last thing I'd like to do before we close up is ask Ila, first of all, thank you so much for being part of this. You started at 3 a.m. in the morning in South Africa, which I think is outrageous, but you offered to be with us. And if you have any thoughts that you haven't shared with us, maybe now would be the time that you could do that before we close.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Barbara, for your support throughout, for many years now. And I also value our friendship, and I've learned a lot from you as well. And, so you're an inspiration. And thank you to Charles and to Seonji for their comments and their participation and their guidance. And I think that together we can make a difference. And this is what we want to do, make a difference in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted just to say before we close out here that our next meeting of the Divine Feminine Peace Spa will be on April 9th. So we do this every month. And our guest in April is Dolores Clara Fernandez Huerta, who is an American labor leader and civil rights activist who was the co-founder with Cesar Chavez of the National Farm Workers Association, which later became the United Farm Workers. Dolores Huerta helped organize the grape strike in 1965 in California and was the lead negotiator in the workers' contract that was created after the strike. She has received many awards for her community service and advocacy for workers, immigrants, and women's rights. So this, again, is to bring yet another culture into our discussion by having a dialogue with a powerful feminine leader who was struggling for the rights of people who didn't have rights for themselves in her own culture, in her own community, so that we can start to see what are the commonalities that we share with these women leaders who are our mentors for the younger women to follow in the future. So I would like to thank you all, and I'm going to show you one more time where you can go to our website before we close and help with Ila's projects if you feel as if you're so motivated to do that, and hope that you'll come back and join us next month on April 9th. So thank you, Ila. Thank you, Mrs. Seonji. Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Stephen. And we will see you very soon. Thank you again.